Hi everyone, and you're all very welcome to today's workshop, and we are talking about student financial supports. And today we have Linda Shaughnessy, and she is the Grants and Fees Manager. And alongside Linda today we have Caroline Bargary, who is the Access Manager. So we're going to start off first with the Grants and Fees Office, and they're going to discuss the different areas within the grant section that we need to, that students kind of ask a lot of questions about. And it's okay, Linda, I'll let you work away and just give kind of an overview of the service, please.
Thanks, Adele. The Grants and Fees Office, their primary function is to collect the fees on the student account and also apply student grants. So for every student in the college, if you're an undergraduate student, there are two fee charges. There's the student contribution fee, which is 3,000. That's set by the Department of Education. So a student would either pay those fees themselves or they would apply for a grant through SUSI for the fees to cover the fees. It might cover a portion or it could cover the whole fees. The tuition fee is normally set by the HEA. The majority of students, if it's their first time in third level, that fee is covered, so they're not liable for that fee. The only time that you would be liable for that fee is if you have prior third level, so if you've been to college before, or if you're a repeat student, or if you're what's known as an access student, where you'll be doing a full-time course on a part-time basis. Okay. So basically, you will get your information in relation to registering online from admissions. You will log in with your student number and your PIN, and you have the option there online to either pay your fees in full, part pay your fees, or pay later if you're waiting for a SUSI grant. The most important thing any student can do is if they've got a SUSI grant, they have to do their registration. LIT cannot apply a SUSI grant to a student account unless the student has logged in and is temporarily registered. Quite often we get students coming in and they say, I haven't got my SUSI grant. It's because the registration process isn't complete. So it has to be complete. So that's the most important thing the student would do if they are awaiting a SUSI grant is log in and register. So in relation to fees, there are two payment fee deadlines. So if you opt to pay your fees in full, you're fine. If you opt to pay, you can pay it in two parts. You can pay 50% of the fees when you register online, and then the balance by the 15th of January. If you don't fit into these, get guidelines or options, you have the option as well to pay by installments. Okay, the installment plan form is on our website, so just go to the LIT website, go to the grants and fees page, download the form, fill it in, return it to us by email, studentfees@lit.ie, and just ensure that you make your first payment online to activate the plan. We will then send you a text every month to remind you to log in and make the payment. Okay. Paying your fees online again is through your student portal. You log in with your student number and your PIN, and there are two options. You can pay it through the registration screen, but the most common option for students if they're paying monthly is through the student account. There are details on the web page as well how to pay your fees. But that's really it. I think in relation to fees is, just make sure you pay it on time. Yeah.
In terms of students, you mentioned there about the deadlines for the 31st of October. But what if somebody just come near the office? What if somebody kind of attends college, they've temporarily registered on the system, but never contacts the fees office? Is there a penalty there in terms of students who don't pay on time or don't kind of contact the office, to set up some type of a plan?
There's a late payment penalty applied if the student doesn't pay either 50% of their fees by the 31st of October or set up a payment plan with us. There's a late payment fee of €100. On the second deadline of the 15th of January, if you haven't paid your fees in full or on a plan, there's a €50 late payment penalty.
Okay. It's
Okay.
very important students contact
It is.
so on.
Yeah.
Yeah, very
Yeah.
good.
We need the students to engage with us and let us know what way they're going to pay their fees. Even if you're awaiting a SUSI grant and your grant hasn't come through, you still need to set up a payment plan with us. Now, we do have a payment plan, especially for students who are awaiting the SUSI grant. It's called a SUSI installment plan form. We only look for €100 a month till your grant comes through, but we do need proof that you've actually applied for a grant. So we will need your SUSI tracker. So the tracker has to be attached to the SUSI installment plan form. And then you pay your €100 a month till your grant comes through. If your grant is awarded in full, anything you've paid, it will be refunded to you. And most grants, 90% of grants are awarded by usually the end of November. So in actual fact, you're only looking at paying 2 installments, which would be the maximum of €200, and you'll get that back then normally in December, like just in time for Christmas.
Very good. And can I ask you, Linda, for example, if I didn't get my SUSI grant or letter until January or whatever it may be, do I need to present my letter to you in the fees office, or do you get informed? What's the best thing to do for a student? Say, for example, I get the letter in the post today. I'm quite late now and there was issues with my application form. Am I better off bringing the letter to you, or will you get notified yourselves?
In relation to a SUSI, we don't need SUSI letters at all. How we're awarded a grant from a student is through a file from SUSI. So we would upload that file, and if the student's grant and their name is on that, we'll apply the grant to the student account. If your grant hasn't been, if you haven't got a grant, or, the best thing I always advise students, just check in every week, normally the middle of October, and just look at your student account and see if the balance is still there at 3,000. If it is, we haven't got your grant. And the onus then is for you to actually contact SUSI and see what the story is. Because it can often happen that maybe a first year student might have changed course or decided to go to a different institute, and might have applied maybe to UL and then goes to LIT, but that grant has gone to UL. So it's important that the students actually, with SUSI, tell SUSI where they're going, and just in case that the grant has gone to their first choice and they didn't actually inform SUSI. It depends. They have to have ticked a box in the CAO to share the information with SUSI, and if they haven't, the grant will still go to their first application.
So basically, if you have any issues with your SUSI account, you have to contact SUSI themselves.
Contact SUSI, yeah. And I would advise students not to phone them, to email them. It's easier when you've an email, because you've a trace and you know when you've did it, and you'll get an actual reply.
And can I just ask you, are the documents uploaded on the SUSI system, or do you know, Linda, like, before the documents just get lost in the post and delay the system, do you know now if they are uploaded on the system at SUSI? Do you know?
I've no idea. We don't have any dealings with the applications in SUSI, so we would only be told when the student actually gets the grant.
I hear you. Okay.
On an award file. Other than that, we wouldn't have any dealings with SUSI in relation to a student's application.
Okay, fair enough. That's great, Linda.
No
Thank
problem.
you so much. Thanks very
much.
much.
All right, so.
Caroline, it's over to yourself. Just you'd like to introduce yourself? Just on mute there, Caroline.
Good morning, Adele. Can you hear me okay?
I can indeed. Thank you, Caroline.
Perfect. Hi, Linda. So first of all, hello to all the students who are joining with us this year, and to all the students returning. I'd just like to say a big shout out from the Access Service, and we're looking forward to meeting you again on campus and seeing you all back. So Adele, I'm just going to give a brief overview of some of the supports that are available through the Access Service. I'll talk about some of the financial supports and like the 1916 scholarship, the Student Assistance Fund, the laptop scheme, and just a few other bits and pieces as well. But I will just give an outline of those supports. Right, so first of all, I'm going to talk about the Student Assistance Fund. So the Student Assistance Fund is operated by LIT through the Access Service. It's a fund where we receive the funding actually from the Higher Education Authority. And they actually they operate that for the Department for Further Higher Education. So it's a fund to support students who are into financial difficulties while they're in college. Okay, it's open to full and to part-time students, and it's there to support things like, for example, the cost of childcare, books, rent, those kind of living costs while you're in college. It doesn't support, however, registration fees or tuition fees. Right, so that's just the first thing. So there are a number of criteria that you have to be eligible for to fulfill in order to be successful in the Student Assistance Fund. And I won't go into too much detail about that today, Dan. Actually, all the details of that are going to be up on our web pages. The fund isn't opened yet. It's opened at the end of September, and it'll be open for a number of weeks. Students will be advised to provide supporting documentation as well with their application. So the application form and everything will be up online. All right, so students can go in to our Access Service website pages, and they can fill in the application there. Now, the first thing to do, I suppose, is for students often say to us, well, where can I find these things? So if you go into Student Life, that Life at LIT tab on our web pages, go down along there and you'll see Access Service. Then go into the Access Service tab, and then you'll come across a number of financial supports sections there, and you go into that and you'll find Student Assistance Fund. In there will be the application form, all the criteria that are required for application, plus the supporting documentation that you need. And depending on your circumstances, students will need to supply different supporting documentation to us. And again, the onus is on the student to supply that with their application. Unfortunately, we cannot assess an application form if we don't have the full understanding of the student's situation, and the documentation gives us that. So that's kind of just a very brief overview of the Assistance Fund. Edel, if you have any questions for me on that?
Just one question, I suppose. You were saying there it's imperative that the students give documents to support their application. Is there a deadline? Like, will there be a deadline set as to when they can submit it? And after that, then, if they don't submit it, does that mean their application form is incomplete and obsolete?
That's correct. Yeah. So if the documentation isn't submitted with the application form, we cannot assess that student's application form. So that application form will be put on hold. Unfortunately, we're not in a position to assess the application form. Like, we do our best to support, obviously, students, and we try, to hold on as long as we can, but there are deadlines around these things as well. So students need to be very, very aware of that, and to make sure that they keep in touch with us and our web pages around any updates around that, So just on that, actually, I'm glad you brought that up, because students often maybe don't check their student email accounts often enough. And it's really important that they do, because we could maybe be emailing a student requesting something, and if they haven't checked their student account in a couple of weeks, it has a serious impact. So what I would be advising is that students really check their accounts very regularly, every few days.
Yeah. And I suppose it's important to mention that it is their student account and not a personal account is where all the information will go to.
Absolutely, Dan, yeah. It's their student account that we correspond with regarding any of the supports that we offer. Yeah.
Can I just ask you, Karen, when the application form opens, is it going to be advertised on social media and the website? Will we hear about it that way, or?
That's right, yeah. So everything will be up on the website, and we're opening at the end of September, all right, and it'll be open for a number of weeks. So that just gives students the opportunity to get the application and all their documentation in together. And it'll be advertised to our social media, Twitter, Instagram, and Facebook as well. And obviously we'll be advertising with the Students' Union, with mentors, and all of the services in the college as well, in the student support services. So everybody is as aware as much as possible, that support is there and it's available for students. And again, there are eligibility criteria that you must satisfy for that. So just check out the web pages just around that, yeah.
So my final question in regards to SCF. Say, for example, a student now got the Student Assistance Fund for the last 2 or 3 years.
Mm-hmm.
Are they under the assumption that they're going to get it straight away, or do they have to reapply again?
Yes, actually, you must reapply. You must reapply. Okay, it's worked on a yearly basis, so we get our funding every year from the Higher Education Authority. And, we don't know how that's going to operate from year to year. So you must apply. So just because you got it last year doesn't mean that you will get it again this year. You must still fulfill the eligibility criteria. You must still supply your supporting documentation. So, for example, if you provided us with a letter, for example, last year, that letter is not going to suffice for this year's application. It's a completely new application, so you have to consider it as that.
That's great. Thank you for that.
Okay, so that's the Student Assistance Fund, and just briefly, Edel, in terms of 1916, actually, we have made a video for students on 1916, so that's available, and that'll be up as well for students to see on Moodle, on the Engage in Education or program as well, and the induction program. So I'll just briefly mention it. The 1916 bursary, and it was introduced there a number of years ago, 2017 actually, by the Irish government, and the aim of the bursary was to try and promote engagement in wider society by underrepresented groups. One of those areas was education. So it's a fantastic scholarship that we operate through the Access Service. It operates for the duration of your college studies, so for the 4 years of your studies. And there's different tiers of awards available through that. 5,000 a year is the highest level of award through that. And in fact, this year, the department have brought in a number of other tiers. So there's 2 other tiers of awards in the scholarship that are available for students again this year. But it is targeted at students who are experiencing socioeconomic disadvantage, and that's the absolute baseline. And then also students must fulfill a number of other criteria. So you must be you must be part of one or a number of target groups also to be eligible for the 1916. So it's a highly competitive process. It's currently opened actually, and all the information is up on our website pages as well. So again, if you go into the Life at LIT tab, access service, and into 1916 there, you can apply there. The online application is there, and then you email us actually your supporting documentation. The supporting documentation for 1916 is emailed separately, and the email account for that is 1916bursary@lit.ie.
Very good. And is there a closing date for that, Caroline?
There is a closing, yes, there is. The 15th of October is the closing date. And again, just in terms of documentation, they're very, very strict on the deadline for that. If you do not have your supporting documentation into us by the 15th, your application is closed.
Okay, very good, Caroline. And I suppose that you mentioned there earlier in your chat about the 1916, there is a video which will be attached to this particular video underneath it, so they can go view more in details about the fund there they wish.
That's right.
And the website again has a good array of information about it. Caroline has it, and the website, brilliant. That's great.
That's it. So all the guidelines and the application form, they're all up on the website, and as you say, the video is there as well. And if students are uncertain, if they have any questions at all, if they can just email 1916bursary@lit.ie, and we're happy to get back to them and support them in that process.
Can I ask you just, I suppose, in a very general question, is it for every student, any year they can apply for it, Caroline? Like, is it?
Yeah.
Thank you, Caroline.
That's just the 1916, and there's just a couple of other things I want to mention as well, Adele. The government laptop scheme opened last year, and we're going to operate it again this year at LIT. It's not opened yet, it'll be opened in the next few weeks, and again, all information regarding the scheme will be up on the website. It's a very similar scheme, I suppose, in operation to like the Student Assistance Fund. There are eligibility criteria, you must provide supporting documentation, and again, we will do our best to support as many students as possible with the government laptop scheme. So all details will be up on our website in the next week regarding the opening and the closing date of the scheme, and the application form will be up there as well.
That's great. And I suppose my final question, Caroline, is about the book scheme for mature students. Is that going ahead this year, Caroline?
Yes, the book lending schemes are going ahead this year. So we have 2 book lending schemes that are operated again through the access service and in conjunction with the library. And so the first one is the mature student book lending scheme, and the other one is the HEAR book lending scheme for students who come in under the HEAR admissions process. So again, I would advise students to go into the website there, just click on the boxes in the access service web pages, and you'll find all the information there and details as to how you apply for those schemes. And certainly, as well, I can just say that, we have a number of web, I suppose, email accounts that I've mentioned there. But if you're stuck on any of those, the easiest one is often to get to us as well is access@lit.ie.
Brilliant. Great. And thank you both for attending today. I suppose it's just important to mention that the website is the main place to visit to get more details of each of the funds and the process in regards to grants and the fees. Thank you both again. And take care. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Bye.